So just to continue with the evolution part, we already said that this is a step that should never be completed. It is also the most expensive step in software development because it's not always foreseeable, and you basically have to move on what the customer requires for your software and how the technology develops and how you can adapt new ways into your business model to earn more money from the software, such as there was no such thing as selling people's data to third-party members or third-party companies around 10 years ago. We could not even perhaps foresee it, but nowadays that's where the money is. Like based on the user, like on Facebook, for example, based on your user interactions, your data is being tracked, and all the advertisements that is displayed to you are displayed according to your real life interactions, such as your patterns of going to somewhere or being with someone or doing something, or what you like and what you show as user behavior on the platform. So if you keep tagging yourself on restaurants, for example, you will eventually see advertisements on restaurants or places to go and dine. If you continuously tag yourself at pubs or like in near some attractions, maybe some travel agency advertisements or some tavern advertisements will appear on your Facebook. If you are someone interested in movies or gym, maybe what you're gonna see there based on your user behavior will be sold to those parties, and hence you're going to see advertisements from them. So they don't even ask you that. It is kind of like the policy that you agree automatically by using Facebook, that your data is tracked down, and all you're going to see as advertisement is based on your interaction. And because they want to target the advertisements for the right audience, and that's where they earn money from it, and so that the advertisers basically reach out more people, and you see advertisement more related to your own interests. Hopefully that is something that has been very established nowadays in the last 5 years or so, but around 10-15 years ago, we didn't have those requirements. We didn't even imagine that it will come to this point, the social platform. We didn't even know how this would happen. So it's not always foreseeable of how the software evolution would go. And because it's not foreseeable, it could be very difficult to apply, because you could have a very well established system and now the industry demands something else completely. And now you have to adapt to that change, and that's not always easy. You might not remember, but I remember clearly that around 15 years ago, there were a lot of websites that were struggling to adopt a mobile view. So it's like they were cut out, they weren't very responsive, and they had very established systems. And it was very difficult to pass into the mobile platform, because that changed everything, and it just suddenly happened in 2010s. Such as I remember in 2009, majority of the people on Facebook, they were playing flash games, and they were sending each other invitations and stuff like that on flash applications like Farmville or some other games. And now those flash games are not supported in the browsers, because Flash is not a platform that is supported on mobile platform anymore. So they had to come up with a completely different solution. So all those Flash games that we played back in the days and earned millions of dollars to that companies, now they're suddenly became worthless of a new technology emerged, and they have to now adopt a new way, an HTML5 or some other media, some other technology to support the same features, because it's not foreseeable. So what I'm saying is that software evolution is not something that you can always foresee. It is a very unpredictable stage. You do not know where the direction will go in the industry, and solely understanding that and finding the right people or training your people to adapt to those needs and making sure that your software stays in the industry is very competitive in itself. And because of its competitive structure, it's also very expensive. It's not always easy. So this is why software evolution is the most expensive and difficult stage in software development. It's not like in the old days that, oh, you release a software and you just leave it at that. It's not like that. Nowadays, the softwares are much more serviceable than before. Like I remember back in 20 years ago, every 2 years, every 3 years, we had a Windows version. Like every 2 years, we had a Windows, or a maximum 3 years, like Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 2000. Windows, whatever. So nowadays it's less and less because it's not only releasing the software, it's also supporting it. So it's just the way that we release and support the software changed so much. It's not like they release the software and stop supporting it, but like Windows 10 has been around for like 5 years already. This is next year is going to be 6. So it's like they're staying more and more because they are regarded as services rather than products nowadays. So there are some steps that you need to follow up in software evolution. These are measuring 3 stages of each software process need to go through are measure, analyze, and change. So these are the way that you can use to enhance the quality of software and reduce the cost and decrease the development time. So measure, analyze, and change. So going down, what you do in here is that it's an ever continuous life cycle, or that you measure what is being needed, you analyze, and you change, and you measure it again. It's a process improvement cycle, and it's not only specific to, I would say, to evolution. You can also, while this is big part of evolution, it should be done in every single software development system. You should always measure and analyze the requirements, the design, and also the development. In the measure part, you measure one or more attributes of the software process or product. These measurements forms a baseline that helps you decide if process improvements have been effective. The current process is assessed in the analysis and the weaknesses are identified. Process models, sometimes called the maps, that describe the process may be developed. In the final stage, you are proposed to address some of the identified weaknesses. These are introduced and the cycle resumes to collect data about the effectiveness of change. While these 3 improvement stages are explicit to software evolution, they also affect in every single stage of software process activities, such as the development will be affected, validation, and so forth. So this is where I'm going to stop today, and this is the end of my chapter. You can see some review questions. So basically in this chapter, we have done the process models, we have seen activities, we had seen some of the most common practices that are used to develop software, such as the waterfall model, if you remember, reusable model, reusable integration and configuration model, and incremental development. And based on it, we also look at the activities today, which are categorized as 4. So we said that regardless of what model you choose, you have to apply the activities themselves. And we divided these into 4 different categories. These are the specification, development, validation, and evolution. Now, Darlington had a question. I would like to take that. Sorry of keeping you. Can you please ask the question now?
Okay, I want to ask a question specifically about the last stage, the software evolution. You mentioned that these days it's important to actively get feedback from your customers or your clients in order to make changes. But in some cases, I think there are some situations where some of the customers' complaints or needs or wants might go against the company's own values and their own goals per se of how they want their software to operate. How much do you need to take in consideration most of these complaints or wants? For example, if I have to help you understand what I'm talking about, for example, Twitter, it doesn't matter how much you complain about how long you want your messages to be, they're never going to do it. You know, they increased it once after so much complaints, but the second time I think the CEO said something like they're never going to change the size of their characters. They want it to remain that way. And in some other cases, although this is not directly related with software, I can give you another example of the Sonic movie that just came out recently. I guess their own case might be that they didn't carry out enough testing, but then they got a lot of bad feedback when they released the trailer, and then they had to go and change the model of the Sonic just to make the customers happy. So in these kind of cases, how would you say that you would handle customer complaints or customer needs? And some of them are just wants. It's not really something that you would classify as a need. How would you handle things like that?
Okay, very good question. Very, very good question. I would look as a developer and I would look to as a stakeholder to this. First, I will answer to stakeholder. Does it make me lose profit? That is the only question they will be concerned. So look at the feedback, okay? And the answer, the question you have to ask to that feedback. If I don't do this, do I lose profit? If I lose profit, okay, if people will stop using my application completely, then it is something that I should really consider doing. If it's not gonna make me lose profit and people will still use it, even though I don't support it, and no other closed media, no other competitor of mine is applying the same thing, then I would just skip it. You need to see a pattern in user behavior in order to apply it. It's not like, oh, one people didn't like because Facebook logo is blue and they want it to be green. That is not something that you would consider as feedback. Okay, this is a choice. A person might not like blue and they might like green, and it's just a personal choice, nothing more. It has nothing to do with what you earn as profit. It has nothing to do with how profitable your organization or your company is. It's just their logo, their brand, and they want it to be blue on, and that's it. And unless it comes to a certain point that blue is associated with something that will risk now for the company to lose profit, such as the blue is the new color of, I don't know, racism or homophobia or something explicitly going on. Okay, and it's just because people associate that with something else and it just would make you lose profit now, or people would just stop using it. It's a big risk for you. Then you would of course consider to change that. But the stakeholders do not think like developers. They will only consider if something is making profit to them, if something is making money or not. Okay, just because one user complained about something doesn't mean that you have to change it. There could be cases, like you said, in a movie that people didn't like of a certain video game character, but the way that designers probably look at this is because, look, if we release this movie at this state, because people played this game in their childhood, and because it's a very established character about how it looks, they will probably not go to movie, or they will just hate it, or they'll just give very bad reviews, because it's just not representing that video game character. It just looks awful. It looks like a monster. It doesn't represent it. There is no there is no character in it that it's supposed to have. And what they did was, look, there's this feedback being delivered to us, and it will make us lose profit, because it's not going to be well received when the movie is released in this day. So let's just postpone it for a couple of months, do a couple of extra work, and ground the character before we release it, so we don't risk in that part. That's how companies think. They don't respond to a certain user comment unless it's a pattern, unless it's something that they see in their context analysis. Okay, there could be not because just one person complains about it, they're going to change it. There has to be a certain number of people. There has to be a context analyst. There has to be some statistical significance of that in order to move to the next stage. On the other hand, as you mentioned, there are certain policies that companies follow because of how they are established from the very beginning. For example, Facebook would never show you how many people have viewed your profile officially. Like, they can do it very, very, very easily. Come on, these are the people that are tracking down us in toilets, basically. And you think that they cannot do how many people viewed our profile today? They can easily do that, but it's a policy that they applied from the very beginning, that they're not going to support this feature. They're not going to support who looks into your profile from the very beginning, because they thought at the beginning that this is privacy. And they're not going to support that feature ever. Okay, I don't think they will. Just as you said, like, I don't use Twitter, but I know that Twitter is a platform that you can only share certain number of characters in one post, and they'll probably never change that either, because that is like their brand. Okay, this is how they were known. This is how they establish. What you want to say is like 150 character and be done with it. That is the difference that I created. That is my signature. And if I take that away, what is left there now? How is that different from any other platform? If it is something that is like they established from the very beginning very well, they will probably see that as a signature, and they will not take it back, because that's a design choice that they made. That is the choice that because of this choice they were known and they're being used, and now taking it back will make them like mundane, or lose one of the fundamental things that they were established upon. So yes, you are right. But as a developer, if I look at this, I would say that if the software is more accessible, more reliable, more secure, I will go to the submit phase that we explained in the lecture 1. If they enhances those 5 categories, I will apply the user feedback. If it does not explicitly enhance those categories, the stakeholders will come up with a profitable perception. So there are 2 ends in here. Software developers think of their services as something that they develop. For them, the most important thing is the software itself, because they see it as something that they produce, something that they dedicated upon, and they spend quite a lot of time to develop that software. It is something that they can show on their CV in the future, or something that they worked and they will look proudly in time when they come back. So they look at those categories that we identified in here, the aim of software engineering. Okay, so these are the categories that software engineers usually pay attention. These are the security, accessibility, maintainability, efficiency, and dependability. So these are the 5 categories software engineers will focus on. But stakeholders do not think like this. they do not technically care about maintainability or accessibility of software. Yes, it's important for them, but at the end of the day, what matters to them is whether it is profitable or not. Okay, if the user feedback is going to make the software more profitable or prevent for software to lose stock market value, then they will look at it more in a more foreseeable way. They will look at it like, okay, yeah, we can apply this. So this is why you need to learn how to speak to stakeholders. You need to learn how to speak your boss, basically, the owner of the company or CEO whatsoever. To them, it does not matter how good you write the code. What matters is what you write is it profitable? Is it gonna make me earn more money? That's how you should talk to them. You need to know politics in software engineering, which is very, very interesting, isn't it? Politics in everywhere in our lives, and you need to understand how to talk to them. Because if you go and talk to a CEO, oh, this is going to make our services like more maintainable now, more software, we can address to these features better in the future. They wouldn't even understand the language that they are talking. They understand the language of money, and you need to know how to talk to them and make sure that the changes that you are going to make relies on some kind of profit, so they will look into this in a more friendly way, in a more foreseeable way. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're not learning coding in this lecture, but you're learning, I think, quite a lot of other stuff that will benefit you in the future, especially if you're going to work with profitable companies. Any other questions before I end this session?
Yes, teacher.
Can you please disable any background noise before you ask a question?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
In the software evaluation.
If you can just lower down the speakers of yours and just try to talk to us, because it's echoing quite a lot. Okay?
No, is good.
Yeah, just ask the question.
In software evaluation, which principle
Right, I am having hard time to hear you. If you go to the Zoom chat, Zoom group chat, and can you write your question there so I can see it? I think it will be better that way, because you have some background noise and we can't really hear you. So it's better if you ask your question on Zoom group chat, okay?
sorry, teacher. No,
Just go to the Zoom group chat, please, Tara. I'm gonna mute you because you have background noise. Go to the group Zoom chat, okay? And ask your question there so I can answer it. Please, if you have any background noise, just disable it because we can't hear you. Any other questions that someone wants to ask? No. So I'm gonna wait for Tara to ask the question. So how do you find the course like this? Is it okay? Can you follow when I explain it? Is it all right? We need to come to a certain assessment now very soon, because obviously I can do the lectures, but I'm not quite sure how we're going to do the assessment. Any suggestions that you might want to make for the assessment? I'm thinking to give you 2 projects that you can work with one another and deliver most of the assessment based on these 2 projects, to be honest. And at this point, I think it's not going to be very efficient for me to do you know, an exam kind of like. It's just I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle that part. So I'm gonna work on a coursework base, I think. And so Well, I'm still waiting an official explanation from the Rectorate office, but if this explanation does not arrive by the beginning of April, I have to come up with my own solution and probably work on some alternative approach to do the assessment, because somehow you are taking these courses and you need to pass them, or otherwise you cannot finish your degree. So any ideas, any suggestions in this regard, I'm very open to listen to you. Tara is asking, testing the type of software, which one is the best? Can you use more than one type of testing in one software project? I'm not quite sure what you are asking as testing. Are you referring to white box testing, black box testing, or gray box testing? Are those the categories that you talk about testing? And if so, yes, you can apply more than one. And as a matter of fact, you should. You do not use only white box testing and leave it there. You actually use all of them in one project. And that's how you come up with an alpha version or a beta version. If you never use black box testing, you will never ever have a beta version of your software. It will just go out to the user and you will regard your user as the beta testers without properly testing the software, which is going to be very, very buggy probably, and it's not going to be well received. Yes, Darlington.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, isn't it possible that the school could altogether just decide to prolong the semester, because you're trying to make sure that we get some kind of a assessment to pass the course, but what about the other courses?
I am only responsible for my course. First of all, I can't talk about other lecturers or how they do. I don't know what other lecturers do in their own courses. Although we talk to one another, I am not explicitly asking them. I know that they use Big Blue Button quite often in the lectures, and they deliver their courses from Moodle, I think. I don't find Big Blue Button very efficient. For some reason, it doesn't work for me. Every time that I try to connect there, it's just not really giving me a good performance. Like in Zoom, I cannot hear the students. Sometimes they cannot hear me either. As for assessment, I think the other lecturers also do not know. They haven't decided yet. We are waiting for an explanation of how this pandemic is going to go, to be honest, to decide whether we're going to go back to the university or whether the education will go on like this. But my personal idea is this is not going to end anytime soon. I think this is going to go until like at least end of May. Okay. I don't think online education will stop anytime soon. I don't think this pandemic will end anytime soon either. I'm sorry giving you these negative thoughts maybe, but this is my perception. It's not gonna happen in like, it's not gonna like April and we're gonna go back to school. I don't think this is what's gonna happen. All right. So I think we should come up of a way for the assessment now that we can do online, and we can support your education fully on the online platform. Because my personal thought is this is not going to end in April either. It's going to be exactly the same. Probably most of the May would be exactly the same as well. So not really expecting anything to change anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong, but that is my idea. As I said, I'll probably give you two different projects which you will need to work with others, because at the end of the day, software project is working with others in a team. So it has to be a team project regardless of the situation. There are fortunately some tools that can support your communication, like Zoom, like Discord, like many other WebEx, Cisco WebEx kind of tools, which you can support your communication. Even though you are on different locations, you can still generate teamwork. And I think that will be an important part of an important experience, and which you can show in the future as well, because if you can work with others on different locations, then you achieve one of the difficult challenges of our industry. So yeah, that's also a skill, I think, to manage yourself, to work with others efficiently, even though you are afar. Now, last questions I'm going to take and end up my session. It's already more than 80 minutes that I did lectures today. So I'm going to stop here. Next lecture will be announced on Moodle. Yes. Ask me. I am listening.
You talk about the prototyping.
Yes.
In terms of application like software design, we have UI and UX. They do this prototype by creating the visuality of the app before you start creating it.
Yes.
Like they
True.
design this and they like do a video and do a testing, asking people if this is nice, if this is it same as the prototyping you are talking about.
It is. It is a way of prototyping. Prototyping doesn't even need to be a fully working software. Okay, anything that you do, just even in Photoshop, if you draw a user interface and show with buttons of Photoshop, like briefly how it's going to function, how the user interface would work. When you press on this button, where does it show? What does it show? How it's going to be listed? All those practices are also part of prototyping, yes. Prototyping is to basically help with the requirements validation. Any process that goes into to help you understand the requirements fall under the category of prototyping, regardless of how you do it. Most people will automatically assume that prototyping is only done as software, but just as you said, just as you mentioned, it's not only limited to the developing a software. Like if you want to design a user interface, as you said, you can simply draw it in Photoshop just to show it how it will look. That's also part of prototyping. You are absolutely right.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming today, guys. I really appreciate your effort of coming and participating in my courses, even though the circumstances are against us. I hope you find these lectures beneficial. These are dark times. Please stay at home. Please stay safe, okay? I hope you all stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in next week sometime. And anytime that you have questions, you can always email to me. I'm checking my emails on a daily basis. I will reply to you as soon as possible, okay? I'm ending this session now, and I am going to upload it on YouTube. I will also share the YouTube videos with you on Moodle page, so you will be able to watch them. Thank you for coming, and enjoy your day. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.